Wei Xiao half teasingly asking Chelsea that, what did you do to anger her? And even I wouldn't dare to do that. Was something that I didn't know I needed, but yes, I did. I absolutely needed that, and it was so nice to watch. Hello and welcome to Talk About Drama, where we talk about what's hot and what's not in the drama world. And today we're going to talk about The Prisoner of Beauty, Qiao, again, and specifically we're going to talk about the characters and how they've shaped up in the drama as opposed to how they were originally in the novel, because I really like the way the drama writers have shaped up the characters, because yes, a lot of characters deviated from the novel, like way off, but at the end of the day they still have motivations that feel feasible, and they still have a good head on their shoulders. Like, they're not stupid, and everything's not like for shits and giggles. Like, I get it, it's not exactly Nirvana and Fire level schemes and like court politics, but it's not exactly like stupid people politics. It's not there for the sake of it, and that's one of the reasons why it's actually becoming one of my most favorite historical dramas for 2025. And can I just start by saying I really like the way they're shaping Wei Xiao's character, because yes, I understand, as opposed to the novel, he's more jolly, he is more inclined to letting his emotions out, he's more respectful, I would say, as opposed to how he was a little bit more coercive in the novel. Like, I guess it was what it is for that time, but this way Xiao, he isn't exactly like, you can't exactly judge him by the normal person's perspective, like for the 21st century, but he's not completely it's that word in Korean, it's gundae. He's not completely like bound by the old religion, so he's a mix of like old and new world habits, and I really like the way they're shaping him, because Wei Xiao, he's smiling, he's reassuring Xiao, he's touchy with her, he confides in her, and he lets her on the show. Like, for example, so I've caught up to episode 25, and I really, really liked the scene where Lady Sui Hang accused Chelsea of trying to abduct her. When Xiao came in to visit Sui Hang, she said, Chelsea would like to apologize to you. And Wei Xia allowed it, because he's like, as long as he has a remorseful heart, why not? And then he saw the Chelsea that, she was leading in, and he wanted to object, but he saw the look on her face, and he's like, okay, let me see what she does. Because had it been the way Xiao from like episode 1 to 10, he would have most definitely stood up and accused Xiao of trying to manipulate the situation, and probably told her off for it, because he was really distrustful of the Chaos and really didn't like the way that she handled certain things, because to him it looked like she was still siding with her maternal family. And to be fair, that's not wrong, because the whole point of the Wei Qiao alliance was to make sure that the Qiao clan makes it out in one piece, and Wei Xiao, with his hot and cold attitude towards letting them off and not letting them off, really put Xiao on edge, and she was right to be on guard against him. But that sort of didn't bode well with Wei Xiao, and he was basically looking for excuses to fight with her. But this Wei Xiao just sat there and let her do what she wanted to do, even though Wei Xiao's elder brother had technically told him to look after Lady Sui Huang, and even gave her the vase token, like half of it. And after knowing that, her vase token was broken because Chelsea was trying to coerce her into going with him, he still let her do it. And when it was revealed that, Chelsea was not the mastermind of the kidnapping, and it basically had nothing to do with him, he just sat there. And he felt it, that there's something wrong. And since he can come out right and accuse her of lying, since the Qiao clan was sort of accumulating beauties to be given as tribute to other governors, he did diffuse the situation, and he did show her that, I'm siding with my wife on this one. And yes, you still have the invitation to the deer hunt contest, but you're losing my trust on this one. And he slowly backed out. And the first thing he did was he sought out his wife, and he asked her, why don't you blame me for this one? Because Wei Xiao seeking her out and just not understanding the reasoning behind why she's so trusting towards him and why she's not angry how she used to be is a step in the right direction, because he's slowly understanding that his wife is not just a child woman, she's also the Wei family's future matriarch. She's there with him, and she's ready to walk shoulder to shoulder with him. And I think the first step in the right direction was when he withheld her sister's invitation to the deer hunt and personally gave it to her and told her the reason behind it, because earlier Wei Shao would have just withheld it and not told her anything, and she would have eventually found out, and both of them would have been angry, because Wei Xiao would have been angry at her siding with her sister, and Xiao Zhao would have been angry at him not telling her the truth, not being completely transparent with her, and they both would have sulked until something happened and they would have to make up. And I think it's such a nice way to see that not only are they improving in the way they're communicating with each other, but they're also trying to walk together, and they're not trying to blame the other party outright. You know, she's trying to understand his reasoning, and he is trying to make concessions for her. Like, he literally gave her brother, a Qiao man, his late brother's spear. Like, how big of a deal was that? Because he literally saw his brother die and that spear fall from his hand right in front of him. It was his brother's keepsake, and technically all of that happened was because the Qiao family didn't lend them support. So this boy belongs to the reason of why his brother is no longer there, why that spear no longer has an owner, but he still got it out and gave it to him, and even praised his skills. And that was the highlight of the episode. And I really like the way they build camaraderie with Qiao and Wei Xiao, because when they're introduced to each other the first time, Wei Xiao is cut to a point where he's trying to find fault with Qiao, and Xiao in the background is like, oh dear, here he goes again. And you know why he's doing it? He's doing it because he believes Qiao did what he did to Yule Fu and Sui Huang. But he's also trying to gauge what this boy is. And the more he interacts with him, the more he realizes that, you know, something's not adding up. And I think when Qiao finally goes away with Xiao, he gives him like a weird look. He's like, it's not exactly the violent, ruthless killer that Sui Huang described. But still, there's in the back of his mind, it's going like, you know, you can't trust the Qiaos. Because, you know, they show some face and they behave another way. But it's also a good way to tell you that, you know, how much control Xiao actually has over Wei Xiao, because she's effectively telling him that, you know what, I think it's enough, with her words, gently nudging him to accepting the tea and accepting him as his brother-in-law, and, you know, telling him it's time to get out of here. But he's begrudgingly accepting it because he doesn't want to accept a Qiao as his brother-in-law. But his wife is literally standing there and sweetly telling him that, you know what, I think you've done way too much work today and you're not able to lift your hands, because he's been holding the tea for such a long time and you've barely taken it out of his hands. And Wei Xiao pretending like, you know, he was testing him. But yeah, that was a really good scene in terms of how this started. And then, you know, it ended with Wei Xiao praising Qiao of how good he was and, you know, how he's a rising star. And good for you, really. And he ended up giving him his brother's spear. So it's a good way to understand how characters can change from the way they were first introduced and the way they eventually ended up being. Because I'm really liking the camaraderie between Wei Xiao and Qiao and Wei Yan as well. The fun interactions with Wei Yan being the uncle that spoils the kids and Wei Xiao being the voice of reason. Please don't spoil that. Like, genuinely hoping, I'm dreading when the whole Wei Yan thing goes down and, you know, he's effectively kicked out of the Wei family, because why would you do that? But yeah, I guess it is what it is. So we better enjoy the good days that we have right now. And I really like the way Wei Xiao and Xiao were there for each other. Like, him holding her hand and silently telling her that it's okay, and her just like being nervous and squeezing it. And, you know, I actually, you know, I always feel that if you have a good drama on your hands, sometimes it's because the script is good and sometimes it's because the actors are good. And over here, it's a combination of both. And that's what makes this drama like rise up to another level, because there's no dialogue. In the scene where the deer competition is being held, there's no dialogues. They're looking at each other and they're conveying their feelings through that look, that eyebrow raise, that subtle smile. You're understanding what's happening without either of them having to say one thing. Even when Qiao is going to fight, even when Qiao won the competition, he stood underneath the dais and he just looked up, and Wei Xiao gave him like a really small microsecond smile, and Qiao was all chest puffed up like a peacock, raising his feathers and preening, because he's proud of being recognized by his brother-in-law. He's proud of being recognized by this mighty warrior, and he's proud of his accomplishments and all of that in just one look. Like, there's no big noise, there's no loud dialogues, there's no sketchy speeches. It's just like one look and you understand exactly what's going on. And the same thing happened when they had the whole harvest praying thing, when they went to pray for the harvest. And all of those guys, they tried to offer Xiao wheat. And I think partly because she was feeling uncomfortable and partly because Wei Xiao just didn't like men approaching her, he took the wheat from everybody. And when he approached her, he had this like really big scowl on his face. But the moment he looked at her with like that big bouquet, he was happy. And the smile that they exchanged Be still my beating heart. Like, they're so precious, and they're learning. Like, they haven't been together for such a long time, so they're slowly learning, and they're trying to understand the other person. And I really like the way that Wei Xiao's character is shaping up, because we forget his family was wiped out. Like, three most important men in his family, his grandfather, his father, his elder brother, were wiped out in one go, right in front of him, and he was a child. And I know it's not a good excuse, but to him, having to raise that spear, having to take that position at a very young age, he was probably like 10, 14, and having to do that, having to go to wars, it's hard. And then you have these responsibilities on your shoulders. You can't really shrug them off and be like, oh, fuck off. You can't. And for him to understand the Qiao family, for him to understand where his wife is coming from, even though his brother directly looked at him and told him that, you know what, don't trust the Qiaos, he's feeling guilty. And we see that when he starts rejecting Xiao's affections, when he distances himself from her very abruptly, because he was trying to understand his feelings, and then to him it felt like, you know, he's turning his back on his family. He's turning his back on his promise to his brother, to his father, to his grandfather. And that's a very tough pill to swallow. But then you also have to realize that you're living in the present. If you keep holding on to the past for so long, there's going to be a point where you won't have a present to live with. And the only thing that you can find consolation would be in the past, because there's only so much that, you know, Xiao can put up with. And even though she knows her position in the family, even though she knows the reason for her to come into this family, even though she knows how hard it is for him to accept it, there's only so many concessions that she can make for him, because she's also a person. Yes, she can stay with him for a lifetime. Yes, she can be there to support him, but the more that he pushes her away, the more she's going to distance herself from him. And eventually it's going to be a point where she's just a shell of herself. She's just there like a doll, smiling, sitting up when told, sitting down when told, eating when told, and just going through the motions, really, and not the vivacious, pretty young girl that she is right now. And I think that's something that they both understand, because I really liked the way when Qiao went to tavern to convince Wei Yan to come back to his house, and she told him, you know, we're in the same boat. And she knows that, you know, Wei Xiao respects her, because on one hand she's trying to blend into this family, but on the other hand she's not letting go of the fact that, you know, that she's a Qiao woman, because she's not abandoning herself, and he respects that, and he respects her too. Like when Liu Yan, a person who's known her since childhood, who's lived in a house, came to propose to her, he bought a visa and called it a lynx. But the moment Wei Xiao was like, yes, let's get married, the first thing he did was he wrote out, caught a lynx and laid it at her doorstep, because that's her dowry, that's what she deserves, and that's what he's ready to give to her. And I think there's nothing bigger than that in terms of the way that he respects her as a woman. He respects her as this person who's dared to come out, who's dared to try and reason, who's dared to try and scheme against him, who's dared to burn the granary in order to make sure that, you know, the gunpowder doesn't go out and damage the dam and take the lives of the people downstream. So he does understand her, and he is appreciative of her and her bravery and the person that she is. And that's probably one of the reasons why he's opening up to her so easily, because he's seen what she's done for him. He's seen what she's willing to do for him, and he does understand that, you know, she's stuck between her family and him, and a lot of times he's not being fair to her, but more often than not that feeling is offset by his feeling of guilt and, to an extent, entitlement, because he thinks he's entitled to her affections, he's entitled to whatever she has to give to him. And now when he's finally let go of that guilt, we see him express his emotions to her more openly, hold her hand in public, give her the wheat flowers, and even reassure her and stop the match. When Qiao was standing there with like the broken spear, he was ready to take on those knives, he was ready to take on that injury, because he didn't want to lose, because it would be a stain on his honor. But Wei Xiao stood up and he stopped the match. He gave him his brother's spear, and he made sure that, you know, Qiao was well equipped to fight, because he's seen his skills. He knows he can perform well. He knows that as long as something's not hindering him, he can win against Su Xin. And that's what happens. You know, he successfully wards him off, and even when he tries to sneak attack on him, he does defend himself. And my days, the director knows what he's doing, because the moment the dagger came at him, and I think it was Xiao who shouted, you know, watch out, and they cut it, and then you see Yunzhou won, Qiao won, and at the back of my mind I'm like, oh well, he must be in the hospital, because, you know, he was attacked. And then, you know, you go back and you see that, you know, Xiao is fine because he blocked the attack, and he actually attacked Su Xin and made him go down on his knees. like I appreciate the director more and more. Like the way that he shot the scenes, the way he's telling the story so cinematically. Because if you notice the fight scene between Qiao and Sushin, so when they were fighting before, there was a background music, and the moment the sphere broke, the music heightened, and Wei Xiao immediately stood up and he stopped the fight. And the music heightened when Wei Xiao had this flashback of Wei Bao when he picked up the spear. And, he eventually handed over to Qiao. And when Qiao went in and they fought, properly fought each other, there was no background music. It's just the sound of blade hitting each other. And there's no unnecessary commentary from the audiences. Everyone's quiet. Everyone's just focused on what these two are doing. And Xiao and Wei Xiao, they're just holding hands and they're watching it. She's worried and he's smug. He's happy because for once the spear has found an owner. And secondly, this child, he knows what he's doing. So he's proud of Qiao and he's also happy to see the spear in action once again after such a long time. And there's basically no background music. And it heightens the scene so much. It gave me goosebumps, because a part of good storytelling is to understand when to use BGM and when to not. And more often than not, Prisoner of Beauty uses BGM when it's required and how it's required. And the music goes up in crescendo just before it crashes down and then dissipates. And the same thing happened when Sui Huang, the first time she arrested Wei Xiao and family. And when she's leaving, she's singing the song. There's no instrumental music, she's just singing. And the atmosphere is so melancholic. And she's just singing it as she goes out. And I think it's Wei Liang who asks Wei Xiao, like, what does the song mean? And he tells him the meaning of the song. But you feel so stuffy because you finally understand her plight. You finally understand her position as a woman who's about to lose everything, and she's trying to grasp on straws. But eventually it's not going to work, and this is her last ditch effort. And so to make sure that Wei Xiao feels guilty about sending her off like that, she sings that song. And it's such good storytelling. Another scene I'm really appreciative of, and I really like the way it's handled, is when Xiao brings in Qiao to apologize to Sui Huang and effectively prove her brother's innocence at the same time. Because it's the way they're talking to each other. Because Sui Huang starts with telling Wei Xiao not to blame Xiao and, basically telling him that she has no ties with her family and egging him on so that when she does defend her family, Wei Xiao would lash out at her. Because, she's technically not supposed to be a Qiao anymore. She's away now. So she's setting her up for failure. But on the other hand, when her lie is discovered, she immediately turns on Xiao and asks her, are you doing this because you're a Qiao? Because I've accused your family of wrongdoing. Like, everybody knows what your uncle is up to. And the way it's handled, because the way they're talking to each other, first of all, because Sui Huang constantly calls Xiao Mei, her younger sister. So in a way, she's trying to portray that, I'm elder to you and a part of your family. And she's treating her as one of the younger generations. And in a way, she's showing that, I'm a part of Wei Xiao's family. So I have the right to call you my little sister. But Xiao is adamantly calling her Yulu Furen. So she's adamantly saying that, you're part of the other family, you're not part of the Weis. And in a way, she's telling her position that, I don't respect you as an elder, and I don't respect you as a part of the Wei family. The only respect I have for you is as Lady Yulu, and you're basically an outsider. Because otherwise, she would have addressed her as like JJ or something, elder sister, basically. But she's like, no, you're not my elder or anything. You're just another title lady, and I will address you as such. And throughout the interaction, when she brings Qiao to apologize the first time, obviously Qiao is not Qiao, it's somebody else. So at no point Xiao openly says that, I've bought Qiao to apologize. She's like, I've bought this person to apologize, and go ahead and apologize to Lady Yulo. And he does. He apologizes, and and Sui Huang is surprised, but she also thinks that, she must have admitted her guilt just to get out of it and not implicate her family. I mean, because she and Wei Xiao quarreled. So for her, it's the best thing, because once Qiao apologizes, she's absolved of her guilt, and it's no longer a lie. So next time somebody accuses her of lying, she can outright say, Qiao apologized. So technically, he himself admitted, it was all true. So Sui Huang is all to just get over with it, and she barely glances at Qiao, and she's like, yeah, it's okay. I forgive you. And the maid is like, I'm sorry, this is not a younger master. There's somebody else who stole some of your jewelry. And then Xiao plays her hand and starts questioning Sui Huang word to word. So Sui Huang says something, and Xiao immediately has a question for her. Was he the same build? Did it have the same voice? Is he really Qiao Si? And Sui Huang is trying to deflect it the best that she could. It was night, she couldn't see properly, but she heard something. And Sui Huang, when she realized that, the jig is up, she frustratedly puts down her fan and she's like, oh, you're trying to blame it on me because you didn't want to take responsibility. And she's trying to weasel her way out of it. And by this point, Wei Xiao's realized that something's very, very wrong over here. And then when Xiao Si actually comes in, he does apologize because he is her sister's brother. He is his father's son. And, he is this gentle boy. And he shows humility in front of Wei Xiao. And Wei Xiao understands that, not all Qiaos are bad. And that sort of leads him to see Qiao Si in a good light and leads him to accept him and basically train him in their own house, which is a big thing because it's like 10 seconds ago he wasn't even ready to accept tea from Qiao Si. So I really like the wordplay because it's a game of wits, and Wei Xiao is just sitting there and letting it play out because they've come to a point where he does respect and understand Xiao. So if she's doing something, she's doing it for a reason. And the moment Sui Huang acknowledges the fake Xiao Si, Xiao gives Wei Xiao a look. He's like, what did I tell you? And he's completely taken aback because he doesn't know what to do. Because to him, this is an unfortunate lady who's left alone because his brother died. And he has a responsibility to take care of her. And that's the best that he can do for her. But for her to lie and outright say that, it was your wife's family's fault when it's not, is a bad look. And I really liked the way they handle Sui Huang, because I remember in the novel she is obsessed with Wei Xiao, and basically her target from the beginning is Wei Xiao, because apparently she and Wei Xiao had an engagement and that got broken when Wei Xiao's family fell into, I won't say ruins, but they fell from grace after 3 generations of their men got wiped out in one blow. And apparently the Wei family notoriously had less of male heirs and more of like women, so there was nobody to take up the mantle, and people started distancing themselves from the Weis. Wei Xiao's mum wasn't really capable of handling the household, and his grandmother ended up taking the mantle and running the family while Wei Xiao went off to battles. So Sui Huang's family, the Su family, they saw that, the family might not be as good as it used to be. So they broke the engagement and got her engaged and married off to this person, who's a prince somewhere else, but the person died. And so she's back trying to get into Wei Xiao's good graces and see that if she can weasel her way back in, because it looks like Wei Xiao might be the person who would rule the Central Plains. And since, she has already lost the opportunity once, she's trying to get her piece of the pie now and try to weasel her way into his life. But over here, it's more of a resentment and entitlement. So she's resentful of Wei Xiao and the way that, he gets to live happily with Xiao, and he gets to happily be a part of his family and rise up to the top with a Qiao woman at his side, while she is suffering the consequences of the battle, because Wei Bao, the previous patriarch, died because of the Qiao family. So she has to bear the brunt because she got married off to a faraway land as a part of a transaction, and she basically has no foothold now. And she's basically going from door to door trying to find a place to settle down and to protect herself, basically. So she's using everything she can as a leverage, and you see her lose it. I think it's like 3 times you see her lose it. The first time is when she's made aware of the fact that her husband Chen Xiang actually told on his deathbed that Lady Yulo be sequestered into the Yulo Palace and just stay there until the end of her life. And she thought, this was exactly what her husband had left as his final words for her. And she was angry and was feeling resentment towards him because she thought in her way that, she'd served her husband the best that she could. But at the end of the day, all he wanted was to capture her in this cage. The second time was when she broke Wei Bao's token, the half jade token that she was carrying with her. Even after she got married, she still carried that half token. And before breaking it, she wrapped it up in a handkerchief and hesitated a second before breaking it because it was hard for her and she didn't want to see it break in front of her. And the third time she really felt out of character was when Wei Xiao bought out Wei Bao's spear, intending to give it to Qiao Si. And to her, that was probably the greatest betrayal he could ever do, because he's not only taking out the spear of the person that would have eventually married her, but he's giving it with his own hands to the person whose family murdered him. And ironically, this happened because of her, indirectly, because had Su Shin followed the rules, had he not pushed Chelsea, and had he not broken his spear, Wei Xiao wouldn't have stopped the match and asked his aides to bring out the best spear that he had, the spear that he cherished the most. Because in a way, Wei Xiao is telling the world that, I cherish this woman, and I'm ready to give the thing that I cherish the most to her family. Because for her, I will keep this Wei Qiao alliance, and for her, I would be able to go this far. Even though literally like 2 seconds ago, I was ready to kill her entire family and had an arrow aimed at her carriage. So seeing Zui Huang lose her shit and for a moment become flustered was actually such a treat to watch. Because from that moment, you see that, she's also human. She's a woman in that time and she's trying to survive. And actually, in a way, she's sort of like Xiao. But the difference is Xiao actually has a good family. And she actually married into a good family, because Wei Xiao, for all of his indifferences, for all of his faults, he's actually a decent husband to Xiao. And he's actually respectful towards her. And there's no direct threat to life to her. Whereas Zui Huang is basically left to fend for herself. Even though she has this army at her disposal, she still can't feel sated. She still can't feel at peace. And even though, Xiao is far away from feeling peaceful, at least she has a home to go back to. At least she has a family that cares about her. And yes, Xiao's uncle is like completely useless. But she's got her aunt, she's got her father, she's got her brother, she's got her sister, and she's got her husband and his grandmother and his mother as well, to an extent. So she does have support behind her, which Zui Huang lacks severely. And that's also one of the things that Liu Yan mentions, that, I finally understand why Xiao rejected me. Why she said what she said before running to a man whose army was literally chanting about killing her for raising the morale just like 5 seconds ago. So it's good when characters have self-realization. So it's good when characters understand their motivations and why it is that they're doing. Because being bad for the sake of being bad is okay, but being bad and understanding why you're doing it is much better. Because you're not just like being bad for the sake of it. You're not just doing it because the story is telling you to do, because the protagonists need you to be bad in order to raise them. You have an actual reason behind it. Like, this guy was sent as a hostage to the Qiaos, and the only reason why he's where he is because the Qiaos were actually good to him. And had they not been, he probably wouldn't have survived it. And the same goes with Zui Huang. Like, her husband was good to her, so she survived the whole ordeal. So she came up on top, and she's in a position where she can scheme for it. Had he not been good to her, it would have been a completely different story. And there are kids who have no place to go. There are kids with no home. And Zui Huang understands that. And she tries to use that leverage to get Liu Yan on her side. And Liu Yan, on his part, understands the way that, she's trying to lure him in. And he's allowing it because to him, there's nothing left to lose now. Xiao is somebody who's out of his reach now. And his hands are, figuratively and technically now, his hands aren't tied anymore, because he's done the worst thing that he could. And was ready to go to all lengths to get what he wants. And it's good when people come to self-realization. And I really like the way they're shaping Xiao as a character in all of this, because she has to receive these guests. So she sees Liu Yan come in, and she can't outright be nasty to him. She can't outright belittle him, because, he's an envoy, he's the lord of the city. And for her, as part of the hosting group, she has to give him leeway, and she's doing it begrudgingly, because this is a part of her official duties. But when she's with Wei Xiao, she's very much open in her likes, her dislikes. If she feels bad about something, you can see it on her face. If she's angry about something, you can see it on her face. She's much more expressive. She's much more unreserved, and but there's also the part where, she feels frustrated by the whole situation, because to her, it's no fault. Like, she's doing the best that she could. She's trying to blend into this family that already is against her. The odds are stacked against her. She has to fight for every piece of information. She has to fight for her place. And even after everything her husband salts at, even the smallest of things, so of course she feels frustrated. But she can't really go and confront him, because there are times when, yes, she can go and confront him because, he's wrong. But then there are times when sensitive things have to be handled sensitively. And Xiao understands that. So you can't always fight head on, because not only would it not solve the problem, it would create more problems. So sometimes she just lets himself get off, and the other times she has to hold it in and not be too obvious. But I think she's reaching at her limit, because, she literally got drunk waiting for him. And when he didn't show up, she just got drunk. And she's like, fuck it, I can't do this anymore. And while drunk, she let go of her inhibitions and finally confessed that, what I wrote on that slip, what I wrote as a wish on that paper boat, was something that I regret, not something that I wish for. And Wei Xiao understood that, as somebody who's married away so far, she can't be open with her family. She can't openly say that, I care for them, I love them, because it could be seen as her favoring the Qiaos rather than the Weis. So she has to be careful on every front, and, he finally lets go. And I really, really loved the part when Wei Xiao, after he softly kissed her forehead, he moves away. But then Xiao Qiao takes the initiative. She puts her hand softly on his cheek, and just very slowly she tugs him down, and he literally pops on the pillow right beside her. And it's such a good detail because in a way he's giving her control, but he's not overstepping his bounds, because he knows that if he goes too far in a state where she's not completely coherent, in a state where she doesn't know what's happening around her, she would resent him for the rest of her life. And so he even respectfully, he sleeps down beside her bed. And it's so nice with the way they're treating their characters with care, because these two people, they've been married for not that long, but they're slowly trying to understand one another. They've been living together now, and cohabitation really teaches you a lot of things. And Wei Xiao is slowly, he's slowly letting go of his gentlemanly side, and he's openly asking for presents. He's openly asking for Xiao Qiao to do stuff for him, because he knows Wei Liang would go and snitch on him to Xiao Qiao, and he knows that, stuff would eventually get back to Xiao Qiao, and she would eventually find out, why he's sulking. So he does know that, and he does that knowingly. And I really like the way they're shaping both of them as married people, but both of them as independent characters. But the only person that I have an issue with, the only person that I can truly complain about is Wei Yan. Like, seriously. I think I spoke too soon last time, because I genuinely thought that, they would do away with the Wei Yan pining for Xiao Qiao plot, but they didn't. And the teaser for episode 26 and 27 shows that, Wei Xiao would find the painting and he would burn it, and it would be an issue between Wei Yan and Wei Xiao, and eventually Wei Yan would be kicked out. And yes, but why? Because once you've rewritten the story, you can give Sui Huang another motive. But why not do the same with Wei Yan? Like, it's stupid at this point, because for Wei Yan to pine after Xiao Qiao, even though in the beginning he only saw her as somebody who's in the same situation as him, so he was basically feeling sad for himself, and he was projecting it on her. He was projecting his anger, his hatred, his resentment on her. That's why he was making things hard for her. But after everything that she's done for him, after everything that she supported him through, that's just wrong. And it's such ungrateful and weasel-like behavior from him, because this person, at the cost of ostracizing her from her newly vetted family, approached you, tried to talk to you, and tried to mend things between you and your family. Every time she sees him, she's respectful. She knows he's her cousin, and she respects him, and she addresses him as such. And for him to be captivated by her, like, why keep that? I mean, I understand on one hand, because things are going so well with Wei Xiao and Xiao Qiao, you have to have an element of discord between the both of them. And the only thing that can really create a big void between the both of them is probably Wei Yan having designs on Xiao Qiao, and Wei Xiao finding out. And then, he's resentful towards her because, she's finally taken away another Wei person from him. And, he's alone now because, he had a brother, and now he no longer has a brother as well. And I understand that. I get it. You want the resentment. You want that point of tension between the both of them. I completely understand that. But why do it in such a way? Like, why? When it simply could have been that, in his travels, Wei Yan actually found a person who looked like Xiao Qiao, and that person turned out to be from Bianzhou, and she was the whole reason why he got in contact with his birth father in the first place, and this whole mess happened. And she went back to Bianzhou, and he couldn't forget her, and every time he saw Xiao Qiao, he got reminded of that person. So that's why he's been so melancholic and looking at her so piningly. And that's why the person in the painting looked so much like Xiao Qiao, but wasn't actually her. And this could be a golden opportunity, because Sui Huang is there. Wei Xiao knows that. And he knows that she's plotting something, because he's seen the way she falsely accused Qiao Si of trying to abduct her. And he knows that, she is cooking up something. So why not use the same Wei Xiao personality that he had in the first 4 episodes, where he used Xiao Qiao's feeling of guilt to let her guard down and give him the seal of Panyi on Sui Huang, and scheme together with Wei Yan, wherein Wei Yan pretends he has designs on Xiao Xiao, and Wei Xiao pretends to be all angry when his housemate eventually confesses it to him, and at the end of the day, Wei Yan would be kicked out. He would go back to Chen Pang as like a kicked puppy, and he would try and rise up in the ranks, and eventually Wei Yan would kick Chen Pang off his seat and probably take his life or something, and take over Bianzhou. And then it would be revealed that it's the Wei brothers' scheme all along. Wei Xiao was in it, and they schemed it together. And you know what the point of contention could be? Wei Xiao knowingly distanced himself from Qiao because he had to show it to everybody that this is the real deal. So they told the grandmother, so these three people know what's going on and nobody else, and they left Xiao out of it. So she thought that Wei Xiao was actually angry at her, when Wei Xiao was trying to pretend that he was angry at her, because Sui Huang had eyes in the Wei manner. So on one hand he was trying to weed out Sui Huang's eyes and ears, and on the other hand he was trying to make it all convincible. Bianzhou would buy it. So once Wei Xiao has all of Sui Huang's moles weeded out, I know he's for sure Bianzhou isn't listening anymore. He confides into Xiao that this was my plan all along, and Xiao feels betrayed because he, as a husband, didn't confide in her, because she feels like he's still treating her as an outsider. And to her, since she's been putting in so much effort, to her it felt like an act of betrayal, because she doesn't know what more she can do to prove herself. And even though Wei Xiao tells her, it's not you, it's me, she's like, no, I can't do this anymore. It's over. I'm done. Because mentally she's tired. She's frustrated because for so many days she's been thinking, what wrong have I done? Why is this always happening to me? Why is this really my fault? And for him to come out and confidently be like, oh no, it's not your fault. It was just an act. And the whole trust that they've built, this foundation, it's all ruined because Wei Xiao didn't let her in on the secret. And I think that would have been a good point of contention, because in a way Wei Xiao could have, just like told her back then, you're Qiao. And Xiao could have been like, yeah, fuck it, I'm a Qiao. What more can you do? And yes, I'm rewriting the story, but seriously, why? Because Wei Yan and Wei Xiao work together so well, and he's literally the last brother that he has. Why would you do that to him? When you can rewrite Sui Huang to be such a sympathetic character, when you can make Liu Yan more aware of himself, and you can make him, to a point, a sympathetic character, why not Wei Yan? Why keep him this lecherous person who's lusting after his sister-in-law, a person who did so much for him? Like, that's just bad and sad, and it kind of makes me feel bad for Wei Yan, because after everything he doesn't even get a redemption now. Because yes, he does, I think, at one point come back and warn Xiao of the attack, but that's it. He could have fought alongside Wei Xiao, but I really hate it when smart characters let their guard down completely and, behave like they have no care in the world, when the people that they need to be afraid of, the people they need to be on guard of, is right in front of them. Because in a way, Wei Xiao knows what Sui Huang is capable of, because he's seen her spin her stories and then completely brush them off. And he is smart. Like, we literally saw it in the first 3 episodes. He's smart. He knows how to play against the public opinion. Even though he doesn't have that much EQ, he does have a good amount of IQ. And along with Wei Yan, who is similarly smart, it actually does have a decent head on his shoulders. They can both scheme against Sui Huang and Bianzhou and actually capture it without much bloodshed and just eat it from within, like Wei Xiao did with Pan Yi. So why not? Like, I would really be surprised and happy if they actually made the whole betrayal thing just a part of his scheme, because why not? Since you're changing everything, why not change this too? But yeah, that's just me nitpicking on it, because it's actually not that bad. Sorry if there's noise in the background. It's raining quite heavily. But yeah, that's actually the range of my complaints for The Prisoner of Beauty, because I'm absolutely enjoying it, and I hope they keep up the momentum. I'm really looking forward to the scene where Xiao finally has enough of it, and then she runs back to her maternal home, and Wei Xiao chases after her, because we know he has the capabilities, and we know that he's on the right path, because he does care for her. And I think if push comes to shove, he would happily go after her, because he is scared that, if she goes back to the Qiao family, doesn't come back, what then? And I think that question is going to eat him up from the inside, and he would most definitely chase after her. Not to mention Wei Xiao's 4 lieutenants. Like, I swear to God, at the end of this, Wei Liang, Wei Chu, Wei Xiao, and Wei Duo better make it out alive, because I'm tired and frustrated with the lieutenants just becoming cannon fodder at the end. Because yes, there are wars, yes, they've survived much worse, and yes, they deserve to have a happy ending, especially Xiao Tao and Wei Liang, and Chunyang and Xiao Zhao as well, because why not? Why can't they all just be happy and together at the end of this? Why not? Why do you have to kill somebody? Everyone's happy. But yes, that concludes my I wouldn't say character analysis, but that concludes my character appreciation of The Prisoner of Beauty, and why you need to absolutely watch it. and don't go on the trailers, because the trailers are really just like quite half-assed. Like, I wish they'd take the trailer person who did the Are You the One trailers, because they were actually very well done. But yeah, don't go by the trailers, just watch it, and I swear you actually like it. And I think Prison of Beauty is now available on Netflix as well in certain regions, so if you find it, please go watch it. And yeah, just a quick reminder, Talk About Drama is now available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Audible, Amazon Podcast, and YouTube. So just leave me a comment really, and tell me how you're finding it, and any interesting takes or giveaways you find with it. And you can also leave me a comment on Twitter or Instagram. My ID is talk_about_drama. So I would really like to talk about how the characters and the story have taken shape so far, because I did feel a little scared after episode 4 or 5, but it really picked up quite well, and if you're binge watching it, even better, you get to enjoy it in one go. But yeah, I'll probably do a final episode on Prison of Beauty after it finishes airing. But yeah, until then, I hope you guys have a good week, and I'll see you guys next time. Until then, ciao.